Hi, I'm Blake Lively, and I'm going to be taking the BuzzFeed quiz, which iconic Blake Lively character?
It started as a whisper in the Hollywood corridors, a faint question that soon became the loudest rumor echoing through red carpet circles and entertainment newsrooms alike. Why has Justin Baldoni's team remained completely silent? In an industry addicted to statements, denials, and damage control, silence often speaks louder than any headline. The once vocal actor, who only months ago was at the heart of a high-stakes legal and reputational battle with Blake Lively's camp, has withdrawn from public view with almost surgical precision. No interviews, no social media clarifications, no subtle leaks through sources close to the actor. For those who follow celebrity legal strategy, this kind of calculated quiet is not hesitation, it's preparation. Insiders now believe Baldoni's lawyers are constructing the foundations for a formal appeal, something far more deliberate than a PR retreat. Behind the curtain, the decision to stay silent could be less about optics and more about evidence, about controlling the narrative until the court of law, not the court of public opinion, has the final say. In Los Angeles and New York, where entertainment and litigation intertwine like strands of DNA, Baldoni's silence has become a strategic weapon. His team understands that every public word risks being dissected by attorneys, quoted out of context, or transformed into ammunition. Legal experts whisper that his representatives were advised to maintain a media blackout until all filings are complete, possibly hinting that new evidence or procedural errors may have been identified in the earlier ruling. This could explain why no one from his circle, not even through anonymous tips, has tried to spin the story. The tactic recalls the disciplined quiet of major corporate defendants who know that courtroom silence, though frustrating to the tabloids, can be the loudest form of control. Meanwhile, the internet fills the vacuum with speculation, fans calling him either brave or guilty, depending on which narrative they believe. But what most miss is that in law, patience is power, and Baldoni seems to be playing a long game few in celebrity culture have the discipline to sustain. While Hollywood speculates, the world beyond the industry continues to turn, and the rhythm of silence mirrors a broader social moment. Across America, storms, both literal and political, rage in parallel to the drama of reputation. Just as Hurricane Melissa slammed into the Gulf Coast, leaving communities shattered and millions displaced, another kind of storm brews online. Social feeds oscillate between sympathy and outrage, between calls for reform and blame games over climate inaction. The destruction of Melissa has reignited debates about leadership, infrastructure, and government priorities, forcing people to ask why the country always seems unprepared for crises it can predict but rarely prevent. The contrast is striking. As the natural world screams, one Hollywood figure chooses quiet. The metaphor is irresistible. While Melissa howls, Baldoni disappears into stillness. In Washington, too, a storm of a different sort swirls. The issue of SNAP benefits, the federal food assistance program, has become political ammunition, with former President Donald Trump reportedly leveraging it as a bargaining chip to influence rural voters. The narrative paints him as the populist fighter against elite neglect, while critics accuse him of manipulating the most vulnerable for electoral gain. Yet, in the age of polarized politics, such maneuvers resonate with segments of America that feel unseen. Observers have noted how Trump's rhetoric on economic independence mirrors, in a twisted way, Hollywood's obsession with personal branding, each figure selling a narrative of self-reliance, resilience, and reinvention. The connection may seem distant from Baldoni's silence, but the underlying psychology is identical: control the message or risk being controlled by it. Back in the entertainment capital, media analysts are comparing Baldoni's restraint to that of other public figures who chose the no comment route in moments of crisis. Angelina Jolie during her custody battle, Johnny Depp during the first wave of allegations, or even Britney Spears before her legal emancipation. Silence, when stretched long enough, transforms from absence into aura. It forces journalists to fill the void with questions rather than answers, turning speculation into suspense. Baldoni's legal advisors, reportedly from firms experienced in defamation and entertainment law, appear to have advised a total communications freeze, especially if the appeal centers on procedural flaws in the earlier verdict. This could include anything from improper jury instruction to misinterpretation of defamation standards, technicalities that often determine the fate of celebrity legal cases. Meanwhile, across state lines, political tremors mirror the entertainment world's chaos. In Arizona, local governments scramble to respond to immigration pressures and environmental strain, both intensified by federal indecision. And in Massachusetts, where progressive policies usually dominate, cracks are beginning to appear in the system's ability to handle cost of living crises. The tension between state leadership and federal oversight becomes another reflection of the same story playing out in Hollywood: authority versus autonomy, narrative versus truth, optics versus law. Whether it's a governor facing budget backlash or an actor facing courtroom scrutiny, the struggle for public perception remains the same. Only the stage changes. Observers close to the Baldoni Lively saga claim that the actor's team may be preparing to argue mischaracterization by media as a component of their legal push. This approach would require showing how coverage, particularly on social platforms, prejudiced the process or damaged Baldoni's professional opportunities before any verdict was reached. Such an argument is ambitious, but not unprecedented. In high-profile defamation or privacy cases, lawyers often contend that media bias functions like pretrial contamination, swaying both juries and the general public. If Baldoni's silence is indeed tactical, it could be part of this broader plan. By withholding statements now, his team can later demonstrate that he refrained from influencing the public, positioning themselves as the rational, law-abiding side. This strategy has a psychological effect as well. Fans begin to reinterpret silence, not as guilt, but as dignity. The longer he remains quiet, the more people question why his opponents continue to speak. It's the classic reversal of narrative pressure, the same principle used in crisis communications when advisors tell clients to let them talk. They'll overplay their hand. If Blake Lively's allies continue to frame the story through interviews and leaks, Baldoni's stillness becomes contrast, an embodiment of restraint in a culture addicted to noise. The entertainment machine thrives on reaction, and withholding it becomes the most subversive move possible. The actor's refusal to participate in that manufactured consensus may be his quiet protest against a system where headlines decide guilt before courts do. If the entertainment industry's golden rule has always been, never let a scandal go unanswered, Baldoni seems to have broken it deliberately, betting on integrity over immediacy. As the week's news cycles spin, storm damage, welfare debates, international tensions, the entertainment narrative continues to simmer beneath it all. A few reporters speculate that Baldoni's appeal could be filed within weeks, timed strategically after the media's attention shifts elsewhere. By launching during another national distraction, his team could reduce coverage intensity and allow legal documents to speak for themselves. It's a move straight from the crisis management playbook. Act when the spotlight turns, speak only through procedure, and reclaim credibility through formality rather than emotion. The psychological toll of such silence, however, is immense. For a public figure accustomed to communication, the command to remain mute can feel like a kind of exile. Friends of Baldoni, speaking off record, describe him as focused, grounded, but frustrated. He reportedly spends time away from Los Angeles, reflecting and writing, channeling his energy into creative projects that won't interfere with legal strategy. That balance between expression and restriction defines the tension of modern celebrity. When every post becomes potential evidence and every statement a potential liability, art itself becomes an escape route from public narrative. Cultural critics argue that Baldoni's silence has already altered the tone of Hollywood discourse. Other celebrities embroiled in lawsuits are now reevaluating the traditional deny and defend model, observing how strategic quiet can disarm even the most aggressive tabloids. By refusing to feed the algorithm, Baldoni effectively denies oxygen to outrage. This could mark the beginning of a new media strategy era, one defined not by spin but by scarcity. In a world saturated with commentary, absence becomes authenticity. Still, questions remain. If his appeal fails, will this silence be remembered as wisdom or weakness? And if it succeeds, will the media admit they underestimated him? The stakes extend beyond one actor's reputation. They touch on how justice and storytelling intersect in the digital age. Every lawsuit now unfolds not only in courtrooms, but in comment sections, where millions of spectators decide the emotional verdict long before judges do. For Baldoni, choosing silence in such an environment is a radical act of defiance, a refusal to surrender truth to trends. As speculation surrounding Justin Baldoni's media silence thickens, the center of gravity shifts from curiosity to strategy. What began as a quiet withdrawal has evolved into a deliberate legal posture that mirrors the discipline of a grandmaster anticipating the final move of a chess match. For months, his name has lingered in the headlines only through association, attached to commentary on Blake Lively's assertive media appearances, to court document leaks, or to social media debates dissecting every lingering detail of their conflict. Yet, throughout this storm, Baldoni himself has refused to play the game. The decision to go silent was not impulsive, it was surgical. Every attorney who has handled a defamation, breach of contract, or reputational injury case in the entertainment world knows that silence is rarely about indecision. It's about calculation. It's about crafting the perfect timing to re-enter the narrative not as a defendant, but as a challenger. Behind closed doors, those close to Baldoni say he has been meeting with his legal counsel almost daily, reviewing procedural transcripts, witness statements, and trial motions to identify what they believe were errors of process that could form the foundation of a formal appeal. In the U.S. legal system, an appeal isn't about relitigating the case. It's about questioning whether the process that produced the verdict was fair. That means every word uttered in the courtroom, every motion filed, and every instruction given to a jury becomes potential ammunition. Baldoni's attorneys are reportedly exploring whether public leaks and pretrial media coverage prejudice the proceedings, an increasingly common argument in high-profile cases. It's a tricky approach, but not an impossible one. They could contend that widespread narrative framing by entertainment outlets, portraying Baldoni as manipulative or deceptive, undermined his right to a fair hearing. If successful, this argument wouldn't just reshape his personal legal trajectory, it could also redefine how Hollywood handles media coverage during ongoing trials. Imagine if the appeal forces new rules limiting how gossip-driven platforms can frame active cases. That alone would send ripples through the entire entertainment ecosystem. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's camp continues to maneuver aggressively, aware that silence from the opposing side creates both opportunity and danger. In the absence of Baldoni's voice, her team has mastered the art of controlled narrative release, subtle interviews, anonymous insider briefings, and emotional framing that repositions her as both the moral victor and the professional survivor. But at its core, this debate, like Baldoni's silence, revolves around perception management. Both rely on emotional storytelling to move public opinion while masking calculated strategy. The political class, much like Hollywood's elite, understands that victory belongs not to those who are right, but to those who frame the story first. The connection may seem abstract, but it's the same mechanism of influence at work. Control the narrative, and you control the people. While Baldoni's legal team stays behind the curtain, a new layer of speculation has emerged online. Some believe his attorneys are gathering expert witnesses in media psychology to testify about the effects of bias in digital coverage. In a world where social media platforms act as modern-day courts of opinion, this argument could become groundbreaking. If the appeal succeeds on the grounds that media distortion influenced the original verdict, it would set a precedent protecting not just celebrities, but anyone whose public image becomes collateral damage in viral outrage culture. It would redefine accountability for digital publishers, influencers, and gossip outlets that blur the line between commentary and character assassination. Blake Lively's PR apparatus, aware of this looming threat, the national landscape remains drenched in unrest. The aftershocks of Hurricane Melissa continue to devastate coastal towns, displacing families and fueling frustration over government preparedness. FEMA reports struggle to keep pace with reality, and pundits exploit the tragedy for political gain. Just as nature exposes human vulnerability, the hurricane lays bare the fragility of public trust. It mirrors, in its own chaotic way, the collapse of faith in media truth. Whether it's environmental disaster or celebrity scandal, the modern public watches everything through the same filter: suspicion. In Venezuela, claims of false flag operations and external interference add another layer to the global atmosphere of distrust. Governments manipulate perception, celebrities manage narratives, citizens, caught between spectacle and survival, struggle to find the truth. It's all one interconnected web of storytelling, a world where information itself is weaponized. Baldoni's silence, in this sense, becomes a metaphor for moral resistance against noise. In a culture that commodifies outrage, choosing not to speak becomes an act of self-preservation. Senator Rand Paul's warnings about government manipulation and the erosion of institutional credibility resonate eerily within this environment. His critique that truth has become tribal currency could apply equally to Hollywood gossip and geopolitical propaganda. The boundaries between entertainment, politics, and justice have dissolved. We live in a performative age, where sincerity is rare and spectacle is survival. Baldoni's quiet defiance seems almost revolutionary against that backdrop. He refuses to participate in the algorithmic theater that transforms pain into content. If the appeal proceeds as insiders predict, it may also reveal deeper divisions within Hollywood's legal networks. Some attorneys are reportedly uncomfortable with the precedent such a case could set. If media influence can be proven as grounds for appeal, it threatens the industry's unspoken alliance between publicity and legal advocacy, the same alliance that sustains countless PR law partnerships. Behind every celebrity lawsuit lies an invisible triad: the attorney, the agent, and the publicist. Baldoni's method, cutting off communication entirely, has disrupted that ecosystem. He's effectively sidelined PR in favor of pure legalism, something nearly unheard of in the modern era. As the appeals preparation advances, rumors circulate that Baldoni's evidence review includes digital footprint audits, where specialized teams analyze timestamps of leaks, social media comment surges, and media narrative shifts to trace potential coordination between online commentary and opposing party interests. If this proves true, his case could expose how digital discourse itself becomes an instrument of legal warfare. This would elevate his conflict with Blake Lively from a personal feud into a study of media ethics and systemic power. From a cultural standpoint, Baldoni's strategy invites reflection on the evolution of justice in the information age. Once, the courtroom was sacred space, a place where facts, not feelings, decided fate. Now, every trial unfolds on two fronts: the legal one governed by evidence and the social one governed by perception. The second battlefield, the digital one, often decides careers long before the gavel falls. Baldoni's silence, therefore, is not cowardice, but an attempt to reclaim the sanctity of the first battlefield. His quiet challenges the modern assumption that every story must be told instantly, that every accusation demands an immediate reply. As we near the end of this saga's current chapter, observers note the poetic symmetry between Baldoni's stillness and the noise around him. Blake Lively, ever articulate and poised, continues her upward trajectory, while Baldoni's retreat has paradoxically amplified his mystique. Public curiosity is an untamable force. The less people know, the more they want to. This unintended magnetism could become his greatest weapon if the appeal reshapes the story. Hollywood loves redemption arcs, and the silence before one often becomes part of the myth. The larger lesson here extends beyond celebrity culture. It touches the heart of how societies process conflict and truth. The world has become addicted to immediacy, immediate reactions, immediate judgments, immediate outrage. Patience, once a virtue, now reads as evasion. Yet, every enduring truth in history has required time to emerge. Baldoni's patience, then, becomes radical. In an industry that rewards noise, he chooses stillness. In a culture that sells confession, he offers restraint. Perhaps that's why his story resonates far beyond entertainment. It reflects a collective longing for sincerity in an age drowning in performance. As the days count down to the rumored filing, anticipation builds. Legal analysts speculate about potential court dates, revised filings, and the possibility of sealed motions that may limit public access to key documents. If granted, such confidentiality would only deepen the mystery, protecting sensitive evidence from leaking into tabloids but ensuring public fascination remains insatiable. Once again, silence feeds the spectacle even as it resists it. The final irony is that Baldoni's strategy, rooted in withdrawal, may have restored more dignity than any press conference could. Whether his appeal succeeds or not, he's already reframed the playbook for handling high-profile controversy. By prioritizing law over noise, patience over panic, and truth over trend, he's reminded Hollywood, and perhaps the world, that real power often resides not in the loudest voice, but in the one that knows when not to speak. And as the world scrolls endlessly through breaking news about hurricanes, political manipulation, or new celebrity scandals, the image of Justin Baldoni remains fixed in the cultural imagination, a man waiting quietly at the edge of chaos, confident that when the storm finally clears, silence will have told the story better than words ever could.